investing in materials and resources that can support young children's learning. I just want to make an apology before we go on. I am admitting people into the room, so I get slightly distracted, just slightly for a moment. So if it looks like I'm hesitating, it's just to let them in. But I'm sure it will settle down as it's already starting time. Okay, so that's just so that you know that Kate and I are going to be with you today. This is our plan for our hour and a half that we are together. We're going to give you a brief background. Oh, someone's got their hand up? No. We're going to give you a brief background to how and why we work with young children. Then we're going to spend quite a bit of time just looking firstly at how time came about, but more importantly, we're going to be looking at the materials and giving you a glance of all the activities that make up time. Then we're going to introduce you to our newest feature in the time materials, which is messaging using a QR coding system. For those of you who are familiar with time last year, we did have support messages, but through feedback, we've realized we're trying out a possible better way of allowing you access to support messaging. So we're excited to share that with you today. And then all the support you need for running a program at your school or at your organization, or for understanding the materials, is available on our data-free website. And we're going to show you where that is and let you show you how to navigate your way around there. And then we're going to end off by giving you some tips, some ideas of how you can use time in sessions where you work directly with young children. So that's the broad plan. For those of you who are unfamiliar with how you can communicate with us, there is a chat function at the bottom of your screen. On the far right hand side, it looks like a speech bubble. If you click on that, it opens up a little sidebar, and you can ask questions. We really would like you to ask questions during the session, and one of us will keep track of what you're asking, and we will. Sorry, what happened here?
It looks like Lavina Flotman is presenting. So there we go. She's not presenting anymore.
So I have
Pauline, it's fine.
Is it still showing?
No, your slide is showing now. Your opening slide.
Okay, but I don't see it. So okay, there we go. Okay. So where was I? I just lost my
train of thought. Don't worry, you were on the last bullet. Just
on the chat function.
Sorry, on the chat function.
Yeah, please feel free to ask questions, and we'll gather them and respond during not during, but after we've made time to talk and to respond to your questions. But please feel free to ask. We always say no question is a silly question to ask. Okay. So now, as luck would have it, something's okay. Here we go. Right. Oh, it says I'm no longer presenting. No,
I can see the slide, Pauline. It's titled "Who Are We Referring to?" That's
so. Thank you. All right, I'm back. I think someone's trying to present, and it's just all right. So we invited you to the session. We've always had teachers coming to the session because obviously teachers, we want to encourage teachers on how they can motivate their parents to use this. But while the time program is intended to go in directly into homes, we do know that that schools and organizations may have volunteers or tutors or facilitators who can use the materials in their existing programs at school or in the community to support children. So these are the people we are referring to today. We've made a very short list of who that might be. But it could be a tutor, a volunteer, a classroom assistant who can provide tutoring support during the day at school. It could be a facilitator who works in an after-school program, and you can use the resource to support the children when they come in the after-school or the homework program. It may be child and youth care work. So Shamshunisa, hi. You can't see the presentation.
Yes.
So sometimes what happens,
Pauline, sorry, can I just interrupt, because I'm also getting a few messages here and there to say that it looks like it's some people are seeing it just a small block on their screen.
Yeah, I'm going to tell them what they can do.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so hover your cursor, take your cursor to that where you can see the screen, even if it's really tiny. And then it has an option there to pin it. And when you pin it, it will enlarge on your screen. I hope that you can let us know if you're getting any success there. Oh, she says awesome. So it's been done. Perfect. So this is the group of people we are referring to when we talk about anybody who works directly with children and can support them using the materials. Right. And maybe there is a context that we never mentioned. Please don't feel left out. We'd love to hear from you what your context is and how your school or your organization plans to use the materials. Okay. So now we're going to give you just a little bit of background as to why. Sorry, we're going to give you some background as to why would a tutor, volunteer, assistant, why would you work with young children? I mean, we've put it in a nutshell on the slide, and I'm sure you can read it. I'm just going to emphasize a few points. So children only have grade R and grade 1 to build the foundational skills for the foundation phase, which then sets them up for the rest of their learning at school. It's a huge responsibility to get it right and to get it right early. And so we also know that it is easiest to support children when they are younger, before the content increase, or the volume of work increase, or the number of subjects that they have to work with increases. So it's a good thing to start young. We've heard from so many people who work with older children. They say they've got to go back, and it's hard to go back when the children have to make sense of what they're reading, because they're doing, a number of subjects. So if you can get the foundations right and you can be part of that solution, yay to you. We also know that children thrive on one-on-one attention. Their relationships get nurtured and built up when they can have interaction. When we say one-on-one, yes, one-on-one, but also in small groups. And they want to learn, they're hungry to do that. So we know that when a child can be supported at home, or in a program that's an after-school program or an in-school intervention program, we know that when they have that opportunity to work with someone who's kind and caring, we know that will boost their learning when they go back into the classroom. And that's what young children need. They need lots of confidence. They need lots of practice to learn all the new things. And learning to read and write and to count is a lot of work, so they need lots of practice. And sorry, I'm just hesitating again because there are people coming in. Pardon me. Yeah, so the next slide, the next few slides, we're going to just talk you through and make you aware, if you're not already, of how young children learn and how we as the adults who work with them can support them. So young children learn best. Those of you who have young children of your own, or you've got grandchildren, you know this just through your own experience. Young children learn best when they are having fun, when they can play, when they can explore explore the environment with their senses, when they can create, when they can make, when they can do. And because they learn best when they are praised for their efforts, when they're affirmed, because they learn best in that kind of environment, we have to remember when we work with young children to treat them with respect and with kindness and with gentleness, and to be very mindful that what they bring is valuable. Yes, they're young, yes, they're children, yes, they need support, but we must always value what they bring and be very conscious of the journey they're on. I love these two pictures. I love all the pictures, but these ones, just have a look at how supportive those tutors are, how engaged they are, how they're at the children's level. And this is really what we will encourage you to continue to do when you work with children. Okay. So we love to use this image, and we like to liken young children learning to read and write to a baby who's learning to walk. Now, if you have a look at these 6 pictures, and once again, those of you who have young children or have children in your lives, you will know this to be true, that when a baby begins to when a toddler begins to walk, the baby starts crawling around, and then they start standing up, and then they start holding onto objects. And when they get a bit braver and they feel a bit stronger, they start holding onto the fingers or of the adults, their parents, or whoever is in their life. They start holding on to them. And eventually they feel confident, to let one hand go and think about until they're walking. This whole process takes about a year, doesn't it? We like to liken that fact that it does take a long time for children that first year when they're in grade 1 to learn to be able to read and write. So we'd like you to keep this picture at the back of your mind and think, that's how you are going to think about the children that you support. That, not all children walk at the same time. Not all children talk at the same time. And so if you are the mother or caregiver of that child, you don't scold them and hurry them on. You just accept that's where they are, and then you provide support. So we would like to remind you, when you work with children, to think of it in the same way. Support each step of learning, even if it seems small to you, but celebrate each step. Give them lots of praise and encouragement and as they try something new, get something right that they struggled with before. And even when they make a mistake, acknowledge that they tried and acknowledge their efforts. And so because children are on this journey, because learning takes time, one thing we want to remember, those of us in the room who work with young children, is to be patient when they make mistakes, or when it seems like they're not getting it right quickly enough. We'd like to remind you, think about when you are learning something new. Maybe you're learning to bake. Maybe you're learning to drive a car. Those things don't take time. You've got to think through every step, and sometimes the car switches off, or sometimes the cake burns, but you don't give up, hopefully. You go back and you think about what you can do better and differently, and you try again. Now, how much more for children is that not true? They won't get everything right the first time. And as an adult, as a caregiver, as a person who's working, facilitating, in this case, the time program, the time materials, we have to always encourage children to just keep trying. We have a saying, we say, let them have a go. Let that be the words that come out of your mouth. Say, just have a go, and celebrate what they're getting right in that moment, in that activity. Once again, we'd like to think that these tutors are doing that. They are not getting impatient. They are taking note of what the children are able to do, and then providing support to take them to the next level. And we have actually given you, and you'll actually see it in the time materials that we're going to take you through very soon. But we list on a number of occasions, all the wonderful, helpful phrases, not wonderful, helpful phrases that you can train yourself to use to affirm children and to encourage them. Here's just a few. Well done. I love how you're trying. Thank you for giving that your best shot. Now let's do this thing. Keep going. Keep trying. Oh, I like that idea of yours. That is wonderful. I love your thinking. Think about as an adult how that keeps you going and motivated. And I'll say it again, how much more for a child who's on this journey of learning to read and write and count. So that was some really brief background to how children learn and why we would work with them. I'm now going to go on to giving you some of the thinking behind the time program. So you'll see I'm just going to talk you through the points on the screen. So the thinking behind time is that we acknowledge that any adult who is taking care of or working with young children, we know that the value of spending quality time with children. And by quality time, we mean really engaging with them, not just telling them what to do, real engagement with them. And we know the benefit of quality time with materials or program, in this case, that we're going to show you, that is carefully structured. So it's a structured program, and it provides the opportunity to engage and to have quality time with children. We also know that the importance of routine time in a young child's life. And the thinking behind time is that if we can provide parents, caregivers, with high quality structured program that they can build into their day, it will start building a routine at home that will encourage, how do I say this? Yeah, that will encourage the culture of the home to almost change. You know, a lot of homes sadly think, learning is what happens only at school. But when children can see the relationship between what happens at school and how I'm supported at home or at the center that I'm going at, they really, as I said early on, that routine learning time really builds their confidence. And then time, the emphasis is on time, but not time that a child's working on their own, time together. We said early on that young children benefit when they are engaged and they get personal attention. The together in my education also speaks not only spending time with a parent, but how all of us are responsible or can be responsible to build up a child's early learning. So the home, which the materials are obviously encourages that, the school and the community. And this is a wonderful example because you are here as members of a broader school community because you know that you have a part to play. And a big part of what we always want to emphasize is that it's together in my education, and the my is referring to the child. And that reminds us over and over again who is at the center of all of this, and the child and the child's progress and the child's learning is what we must never forget. Is why we're investing in these materials. Okay, so I kind of covered quite a bit of it already, and like they say, you're probably preaching to the converted because we're going to have a look later on and see who of you in the room actually have the materials. It has arrived at your center or your school, or you've been asked to help work with the children. So you've kind of sold on it already. But a reminder, but why what's the value of having invested in time? So the program focuses on children in grade R and in grade 1. I said it promotes learning at home. It helps a school or helps schools to take the lead to get their families on board. It's always a struggle for schools, but when they've got something that's concrete and that's high quality, and they invite a tutor or a classroom assistant and the materials go home, it really helps the schools get families on board. Lots of teachers ask parents to help. They just don't know how. Parents don't know how. And that's what we're excited about, because these materials assist you who are working with the children on how to help the children. It's very detailed, very specific. We're going to take you through that in a minute. Time builds the foundational skills in language, in maths, and in life skills. There's one who's on.
Sorry, Pauline. Sorry, Pauline. There's an echo. Can we just please thank you, everybody, for keeping your mute on. Thanks. Okay.
Thanks, Katie. So when time builds not only early language skills, but also maths and and life skills, foundational skills. It is aligned to CAPS. It's approved by the Department of Education. And the good news is that a parent or a tutor or a facilitator doesn't have to be the teacher. You're not asked to replace, but when you can use the time to mediate these materials, you can be rest assured, as they say, that what you're doing is gonna complement the learning that's taught in the classroom. And we are an organization who believes in the value of multilingual, having access to multilingual materials, and these materials are in English, Afrikaans, and isiXhosa at the moment. All right, and I know. So I've given you a brief overview of a background to working with children, bit of rationale of why time is in existence. I'm going to hand over to Kerry now, who will take you through the materials and the activities that make up time.
Thank you, Pauline. And hello, everybody. It's good to see. I see a couple of faces, and the rest are, I know you're there. I get to do the exciting part, because the materials are really, for those of you, we're assuming that most of you have them or have seen them last year, even if you don't have them yet this year. And they really are, we're proud of them. They're good quality and colorful and pitched, we feel. Hello, Emmy Literacy. Okay. So what we're going to start with is just a little video showing all the materials in the time program. And then after the video, we'll start to unpack it a little bit and take a closer look at the day-to-day activities that are done. So thank you, Pauline. Pauline, there isn't any volume on the...
I just saw that now. Okay. Just give me a sec. I'm just going to stop it, Kerry, and try and figure this out. Okay, let's try now.
There we go. Thank you.
Here is a brief overview of the time home learning materials for grade R and grade 1. We suggest you set aside time every day for 5 days a week to do the activities with your child. 20 minutes with your grade R child and 30 minutes with your grade 1 child. You will always start your learning at home time together with story time. Sit comfortably with your child and show them the big picture story, the little book story, which you will fold beforehand, or the read aloud story. Ask your child what they see and what they think you are going to talk and read about. Now, enjoy the story together. In the second activity, your child will get a chance to draw and write about their favorite part of the story, or something related to the story. Next, your child will get a chance to do some looking and listening activities. These activities will help your child hear and observe more and pay attention for longer periods. Every week, your child will get to play an active game or a board game. The games will help develop their small and big muscles and will give children playful opportunities to learn about letters and words and to practice their counting. Children learn best when they are having fun. Your child will also get plenty of practice forming different shapes, letters, and numbers each week. This will build their confidence. These 5 different activities get repeated every week with a different story and different letters and numbers. In addition to this focused learning time, we remind you of the many opportunities you have to talk, to sing, and to count with your child. And we emphasize how important it is to praise and encourage children every day. We have provided an A3 poster which you can put up somewhere convenient at home. It will help you think about each activity before you start. It also helps you get prepared. We've given you a simple recipe for making Play-Doh, which you will need for the letter and number formation activities, and provided instructions on how to make a dice for some of the games, and how to fold the little books for story time. The resource pack has all the activities you will need for 6 to 8 weeks of learning at home. You will get a new pack every term. For each week of learning, you get an activity page which describes the 5 activities you will do that week with your child. Day 1, story time. Day 2, drawing and writing. Day 3, looking and listening. Day 4, games. Day 5, shapes, letters, and numbers. Each week starts with story time, remember? So each week you get a story. The story can come as a big picture, a little book, or read aloud story. Lastly, each week you will also get the game and letter templates you will need. We've also included this activity record, which is a great way for you and your child to keep track of what you've done together. Remember to write your child's name on the sheet. Color a star as you complete each activity. We are sure your children will want to show their teacher how much they have done at the end of each term. The materials are available in English, Afrikaans, and isiXhosa. We encourage you to keep all your resources in a safe place. We will send out messages to help you prepare and use the materials at home. Make time together. We know you can make a difference to your child's learning.
Thank you for presenting that, Pauline. So that was a really nice overview of all the materials that we deliver each term in our time material packs. Now, this slide that we're looking at is just a collage. They happen to be of a term 3 materials. Most of us are busy with term 1 materials at the moment, and some are coming on board during term 2. For this year, 2022, term 1 and 4 will consist of 6 weeks work, and then terms 2 and 3 will have 9 weeks worth of work. Now, time last year was primarily used by teachers to send home to the parents, and that was how it was primarily used. And so when you see that there's day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4, day 5, we keep hearing that it's this day 5 program, and it's week by week. We would like to encourage, and we're also very, as Pauline mentioned earlier on, we're also very curious about how the people in this room and your colleagues are using it in settings that aren't in the classroom necessarily or at home. And that's what we're here to do today. So as I'm picking out each piece of the materials, think about how a 5-day program can be used in your setting. So for instance, we might say that, okay, day 1, we do this, and day 2, we do this. But you may find that in your community setting as a tutor or other community worker, you might be able to combine the two activities of day 1 and day 2, and day 3 and day 4, and so on. So we're encouraging you to use the materials in a way that really benefits the children in your care. We would like, though, to emphasize that this really is a story-based program time. And so you will see that each week starts off with a different kind of story. And so it really would be nice that when your child or the children in your care begin with their week 1, that you do make sure that no matter which order you choose to do the activities in, that at least they begin with the story. The story brings them in. They love hearing the stories. You'll get to see that they actually use little books to read their own stories. We call it emergent reading. Children love to, even if it's just pictures, they love to weave the story around this reading and show you how well they read. We also see the value in keeping the parents involved as far as possible. So even though you may not see the parents necessarily or have that much contact with the parents, we do encourage that as much as possible the materials move between home and yourselves. And you saw the activity record which was mentioned, and that keeps a nice track of perhaps a child did activity 1 and 2 at home with their parent already, and they come back to you and do activity 3, 4, and 5. But as we keep reiterating, there's so many various ways that you're working with these children in the community, and we'll unpack that a little bit more. So wherever possible, to keep the families involved, to keep the parents involved in the work that you're doing with the children and in the children's working through of these materials. Thank you, Pauline. Okay, so this was mentioned in the video. It's called the parent or the caregiver poster, and this is valuable to yourselves because it really helps to guide through the activities. So what you're seeing at the moment are tips or directions on how to make Play-Doh, how to make a dice which works with some of the games, how to fold a little book, and so on, how to prepare yourselves, how to prepare an appropriate space, have stationery ready and all that sort of thing. The poster also is valuable in that it gives a little more information about each of those 5-day activities that repeat each week. Repetition, repetition, repetition is what children thrive on. But with this program, the actual theme, so the story time, the drawing and writing, the looking and listening, that is repeated. But of course, the activities under that will change from week to week. So you will see that when you look at this poster, it gives you these directions on how to prepare some things. There is also a feature on it that is every day remember to. And this feature actually directs us to remember that children learn all the time. And this we know, they learn from everything. Whether you think they're listening or not, they're soaking it in. They're hearing things that you don't even realize they're sitting listening to. They're watching interactions. They're watching the world around them. And so they are learning all the time, every day. And so sometimes we give, once a week on the weekly planner, we give, and on the parent poster, we give these reminders of opportunities that might come up during the day to focus the children's attention on some of the language and some of the maths that just naturally happens around them. And then we did see, we've referred to the activity record as well. And the activity record is great as a tracking tool to see what the children have completed and so on. We'll unpack that a little bit just now as well. And then if you look at the picture on the slide, you will see in the bottom right-hand corner, there is a little sort of black and white pattern. I'm sure most of you will recognize that symbol as a QR code symbol. And that is a very handy feature where every week One of the activities will have a QR code linked to it, and there will be a supportive and helpful message about that particular activity, how to get the most out of it for the child. And that will also come up again just now, where we specifically show you that and tell you that. I should also just mention as well that the weekly activities in the weekly planner are also toggled. And by toggled, we mean that we have the Afrikaans and the isiXhosa versions are toggled by having the English at the back as well. So this was to help parents at home who perhaps the materials are coming home in a language that isn't their mother tongue. So we were hoping that this would help with some understanding at home, help guide through the activities. And it will guide you in this room as well, so that you've got that option of reading some instructions in one of those 3 languages that hopefully accommodate you. Thank you, Pauline. Right, so here we come to the very first activity that happens in a week, which is on day 1, and it's story time. And story time, the children will be exposed to 3 different ways of listening to stories or experiencing stories. So one of the ways, and this is the one that's shown here, and we'll take a little look at the other 2 ways in a moment. So this one on this slide is showing us the big picture story. Okay, now it's important that there definitely are, well, there will always be steps and guidelines that accompany each of these stories. You can see where the red arrow is pointing. It's not brilliantly clear, but you'll see there's little bulleted list below. And that is the guidelines of what kind of questions to ask the children and encourage the children to look for and to answer. And they're not just, we encourage them not just to be yes or no answers. Sometimes there's answers that use a higher level of thinking and reasoning in order to answer it. The stories also, while language, often also look at the maths concepts as well. So one of the ways that the maths concepts are brought through are through these stories and through this big picture story. So with this big picture story, you can see that you will be guided as to the kind of questions to ask the child around that picture. Thank you, Pauline. Then you will see that on another week, story time might involve a little book story. And if you look in that picture, the little girl, she's holding her folded little book. Now, the little books in your materials pack come flat as one A4 sheet. And so we are, and there are directions on how to fold the book in quite a few places, because the folding of the book is very important, obviously, because we need the children to understand how books work, how to hold them correctly, how to see the beginning, the middle, the end, and how to progressively follow a story. The early stories in grade R, what you'll find are actually wordless stories. So it's the sequence of the pictures that makes sense to the children as they feel like they're reading to you. What else did I want to mention? Sorry, I'm just looking at my notes. You don't have to worry now. We're going to show you a video of how to fold the little book, and you'll find that once you get the hang of it, it goes really quickly. And there's even people now who are able to sort of put a couple of them together at a time, so that they're not folding just one at a time, one little book at a time. And these little books are wonderful because they get to go home with the children. The children can create this little library of little books, and they can even be encouraged to write their own. You fold blank sheets of paper into this book format, and there's opportunity for them to create their own stories as well and fill their life with this richness of stories. And then the third type of story that will come into the story time block on day 1 is what you can see on the screen here, and it's called a read aloud story. Now, this story is where the children just sit and listen to a story. And this is when you can bring out your best storytelling skills, and you're welcome to use props and all the things to entertain the children to listen to the story. It's important here that it's a storytelling and not a story reading at this point. So some preparation, they're simple stories, some preparation ahead of time is advised so that you and the children can comfortably sit and enjoy the telling and the listening of these stories. Okay, so Pauline, I think the video for the, yes, thank you. And there we have it. Looks easy, doesn't it? I'm sure some of you are groaning, but don't worry. As we've said, the video is available, the step-by-step instructions are written down, and it's one of my favorite little things, you know, for each child to have their own little library that they can take home and share and all of that. It's fantastic. I do stress though that it is important to fold it correctly, remember, because we don't want the story to be all higgledy-piggledy. It needs to flow in the correct sequence. Okay, so now we can move on to what will happen on day 2, or in your terms, it might be session 2 that the child comes to you. So the day 2 will always be a drawing and writing activity. And one of the things that we ask is that a firm surface is prepared to work on. We've had some amazing feedback over last year of children in all different spaces of their homes doing these activities. And we did notice that some are working on their beds or working on, on a couch or a pillow, and that's fine. But when the children are with you, just ensure that there is a nice firm surface. A table is ideal, of course. It doesn't have to be a table, the floor, a tray, a hardcover book, just so that they, that they are supported nicely while they are drawing and writing. So it's quite something to say, writing about a grade R child, because we need to understand and remember what Pauline showed us earlier about those steps that a baby learns slowly and slowly and slowly. And so with grade R children, the terms we really use are emergent drawing, emergent writing. And so sometimes you will know that it might just be a scribble, but the child, they know exactly what they've want that to mean. And so you encourage that. That is what we want. It's developmentally accurate. That, of course, they're going to start with scribbles and making shapes, and they'll hopefully feel very confident about what they are trying to put across. And so we really do encourage you to encourage the children to just have a go. You have a go first. And then sometimes you might find a child is hesitant, and then you can help encourage them. It's best, of course, we wouldn't want to sort of take a pencil and say, well, no, it should look like this, or it should sound like this. We guide the children gently. And if there's just something like, for instance, on this picture on the slide, we can see here that possibly the child's name is Sam. So Sam has managed to write his or her name if she's Samantha. And then she's written 2 little letters she's found. She kind of obviously has had a bit more experience and has sort of knows that there's a in there somewhere, and she can hear there's a l in there somewhere, and that's her writing of apple. But before that sort of stage even, you'll be very aware of the scribbles and all the little wriggles and signs that accompany pictures. And so it's important, as we said, and you can see on the slide, that we allow the child to take the lead. Often these drawing and writing, especially in the grade R years, the drawing and writing activities are very closely linked to the story that they've been read. And what is great about that is that during the story, a lot of vocabulary, they would have heard vocabulary, and they would have heard you speaking it through the story. And so they will hopefully be able to use some of that vocabulary as well. And so often it starts off by them drawing a picture about the story, perhaps a favorite part of their story. And then you will see through your guidelines, you guided exactly how to work through a drawing and writing day. And you will see that the guidelines will guide you to ask them to draw the picture and spend some time doing that. And then you ask them to tell you about the picture. What have you drawn? And they'll tell you. And then you might prompt the child by saying, oh, would you like to write something about this picture that you've just drawn? And hopefully they'll say yes, and they'll pick up their crayon and they'll do their little writing. And you will ask that child, wow, won't you read this to me? Please tell me what you've written here. And then they will tell you what they've written, and you will celebrate that. And that's how it can go. You might have a child who's maybe is very shy or hesitant, or has been told somewhere along the line that that's stupid, that's not writing, that's just scribbling. And they might be hesitant to actually write. And in that case, you ask them, would you like me to write for you? And then you ask them what they would like to say, and you write that exactly as they say it to you. So you're respecting what they're trying to say, and you're writing it nicely for them. And as you're going along, and afterwards you can look at it, you can point at the words and go, is this what you meant to say? And you read it with them. Okay, so yes, step 1 is always encouraging them to attempt to just have a go at the drawing and the writing. And then if that isn't something, if that's giving them anxiety, then you guide them and you help them by helping them by you writing. Thank you, Pauline. And so that's, we've sort of touched on this. So with the writing, just let them try. There's a technique that we use, which is very useful as well. Just note that obviously in this picture, this is a child who is not, we wouldn't expect this from a grade R child. If you have grade R children writing like this, that's fantastic. This is more an example of a grade 1 child writing, and possibly later on in the year. So we really are not, this is not an example of what we're expecting, but this is an example of this process of drawing a line for each word in the sentence. So, sorry, thanks, Pauline. So they draw, so when they've told you what they want you to write, you can say to them, right. So for instance, in this one, the child was trying to write, I saw the egg, the caterpillar is fat. So you will, so this, the tutor, the person, the facilitator guiding this child would have gone, right, how many words? Let's see. And you can do it on your fingers because this is, remember, these children are still using concrete apparatus for their counting and numbers. And you can count. I saw the egg. Great. And then you write, you draw the little line. I saw the egg, and so on. And then it helps them, and then they can either make their little marks on the line, or as we said before, if they're hesitant and not feeling secure, you can write what they want to do. The second little point on that slide, you will see the word invent spelling. So at this early point, we encourage children to invent their spelling. Don't overcorrect them. Obviously in grade R, they're still learning what those sounds sound like. That's the first step, is actually hearing the sound. And the developmentally later, as they start to realize, oh, what I've heard, I can write. And that writing takes a certain shape. But that takes lots of practice and time. So when they are just writing with this invented spelling, that's absolutely fine. The basic, you can see on the slide that this child was, for instance, caterpillar. She saw cat, she heard cat, and that she sort of knew, okay, I must write something there. And we praise them for trying, because obviously as the year goes by, as they're exposed to more sounds, the spelling will start to come right. Thank you, Pauline. Okay, so that leads us to day 3, and this is, day 3 will always be a looking and listening activity. Now, we really ask or highly recommend, of course, that you find a quiet space, if at all possible. That would be first prize. And when we talk about noisy distractions, that's often having a TV on, or having the cell phone on, or having booming music in the background. You know, when you're working in a center and maybe you have a couple of things going on all over the show, you've got little groups doing things, that is a healthy buzz. You know, we're not expecting it to be absolutely dead quiet for these looking and listening activities. But if you reduce the distractions for the children, this activity will be so much more successful, and it really will help them to focus into the activity. So because the focus here is looking and listening, you help the child to listen carefully and follow the instructions you will be giving them. And if it's looking, they will be looking carefully. As time goes by, we hope that they will be able to listen for longer and longer periods without being too distracting. There's also something on the slide here in bold that's very important as part of this program as well, and as part of how we work with young children. And that is, if the child is tired or losing interest and they're getting wriggly and they're distracted and it just looks like, you know, encourage them a little bit. But you know what? If it's getting to that point, just say, right, let's take a breath, or let's go do something else for a moment. Let's, you know, give them a break. Don't push it and push it, because there's no value in the child being grumpy and tired, and we now pushing through this activity for the sake of pushing through the activity. And we know that in this day and age, with little sound bites, we live our lives in these tiny little sound bites, and children have that coming at them all the time. And so, I mean, in the past, it was difficult to keep children's attention and keep them focused. And even now, it's sometimes even more difficult because, you know, the attention spans are so short. So this really is something that needs to be taught and practiced over time. Thank you, Pauline. So this slide sort of talks to the fact that not only will the children be looking and listening in their session with you during that focused time, but it reminds us that children are looking and listening all the time. So for instance, in the picture on the left, this father is walking the child, and they're noticing as they go along, oh, look, that sign, what does that sign say? Or they're noticing print around them, they're looking at things and listening as they go along. The picture on the right also shows that through the other time activities, there's always opportunities for listening. And so this is a game, and this game would also depend on the children needing to use their looking and listening skills. Okay, thank you, Pauline. Right, and that brings us to the games. Now, we know that this is probably one of the things that the children like to do the best, because learning, we really want to be reminded that this is learning through play, and that through playing, children learn. And so they see this as a fun game, and you know that actually it's quite directed to be learning certain specific things. And when children are having fun, that just opens them up to the learning coming. They don't even realize that they are learning. There are in the time program, there are board games that are in the packs, but there are also some activities that are directed to be done outside or in an enclosed but open space, because they are big movement games. For instance, in this photograph, you can see a child playing hopscotch. So games just have so many benefits. Obviously, the big movement games, they build the children's crossing the midline, it builds their muscle tone, it builds their brain's processing powers, and all of that leads back to helping them have a strong base to come from when they are learning the basic skills of maths and literacy. So those are some of the skills. The games that have been directed in this program aren't just literacy games. So there will be a literacy aspect to some of them, but there's also a maths aspect to others of them. So there will be games around counting, letters, new words. The children will be encouraged to learn social skills, part of their life skills learning, like waiting for your turn, about congratulating someone who's done well, possibly about being gracious, in loss, if you're not winning the game every single time. So games build in many layers of things, including life skills, valuable life skills for these little children. Thank you, Pauline. So here is just a little focus on the board games. As I mentioned, they come in your packs, and there's just a little tip to say that it's best, if possible, to paste the board games onto cardboard. So, of course, that could be a cereal box or a cut-up box, any kind of card. It just helps to maybe give the game a little bit longer life, but also it makes a nice surface for the children to be playing on and not sort of poking through the page and so on. So if you're able to, that's a good tip to put your board games onto some cardboard. Thank you, Pauline. And then, as I spoke about earlier, there will be times where they will be doing things. For instance, on the left, this little boy is doing a balancing activity, almost like a little obstacle course that was created. In the middle, we see hopscotch, and we can see that any outdoor space. The boy on the left has an indoor space. The child in the middle is using a little alleyway there and has scratched into the sand. The child on the right is practicing writing letters and sounds, scratching them with a stick into the ground. So all of that is valid for the outdoor games. Thank you, Pauline. Okay, and day 5, so this would be the last day in that sequence of activities for the week. And the day 5, as you can see in the little picture where the red arrow is, this deals with shapes, letters, and numbers every time. And as with the other activities, the focus will be on shapes, letters, and numbers, but the activity from week to week to week will change a little. Of course, we know children need lots of practice with shapes, letters, and numbers. Our focus isn't to get them forming perfectly correct letters from the outset. Remember that our focus is on letting them feel confident about having a try. And you'll see that it'll be scaffolded as we go through term 1, term 2, term 3. You will see the progress that is made, that by term 4, these children will have developed a way, ways of writing the letters in a more recognizable way. You will notice when you are directed during this time, the instructions that direct you to help the children is that it generally starts with big movements. So they will be tracing, if they're doing for instance, it'll be in the sand, it'll be in the air, to trace it on their arm or on a friend's back. And what we say here is, even though you're not insisting that the letter is formed correctly, it's a very good practice to model it for them correctly. So often remember that when you're actually looking at a child, if you're doing it one way, they're going to be seeing it in reverse. So it's often quite good to stand or sit next to the child so that you're looking at the letter from the same perspective, so that when you are modeling it for them or showing it to them, they are seeing it the correct way. At this stage, it's perfectly normal, and we expect it that letters will be upside down, back to front, higgledy-piggledy, and that is also fine. It will come right with lots of practice. During this time, they will also be learning, they'll be coming to realize that shapes that they see on the paper, so maybe it's a B, actually have the sound B. And that is important when you are talking to the children about letters and sounds across this program. So whether it be in game time or story time, any of the times that, some of us might, as adults, want to go, will you spell it B-E-D? But it's very important that it's the B, E, D. Those are the sounds. What does it sound like? And so these days often are accompanied by, I'm not sure, Pauline, the next, is there another? There we go. So you will see that that day 5 activity is normally accompanied by some sort of activity like you can see over here. So for instance, there's templates available for numbers and letters in your packs, and the children will be working on those. They might be directed to color them in, they might be directed to stick paper on them. You can see in the middle there's a picture of a T, and there they were making use of Play-Doh. So they had rolled the Play-Doh into little balls, which helps with their muscle development, and tiny little balls, and placed it on the shape of the T. If you look closely, you will also notice that at the beginning of the T, there's a dot and an arrow. Now on the templates, that helps the children just to start the correct direction of how to form the letters. Now, all the things we're busy telling you here today are repeated again, and you will be reminded of these in your materials. So, and also, if you need to know anything further because you think you're missing out on something here, Pauline will be telling you about the website and the messaging. So there really is support around the program and around each of these steps. So, yes, Pauline, thank you. I think there's the next slide. Okay, so if you're looking in the corner there where the red arrow is, I mentioned it before, on every weekly planner, there's that little gray block there called Every Day Remember To. And these are tips for just that daily informal learning that happens wherever the children are. So they're learning informally inside and outside the home. It's in their everyday routines. Songs, it might suggest some songs and rhymes just to be sung and casually have fun with them. And also this Everyday Remember To also encourages us and reminds us to praise and encourage the children and all the attempts that they make with the activities in this program. Pauline, the next slide, please. Right, and then the last little bit of the unpacking of the materials that we will look at is this, and it's the activity record. Now, just to point out on this example on the slide, the red arrow is pointing towards where you will find the activity record. And just as a matter of interest, you will see that there's a QR code there. So that means that for this week, there will be a special message to listen to support you around something to do with this activity record. But that's just aside. The activity record is really has a couple of functions. One is a way of encouraging and rewarding the children for work well done. You can see in the picture below, the little chap is showing all his teeth. He's so proud of himself and his big grin there. Now it's important. We found in the early days of the program that children were loving this so much they would take different color pencils and color all the stars in on one day, and that was that. But the aim of it is just to have one star colored at the end of each activity. And so you guide the children to do that. Thank you, Pauline. And so there is a benefit to the child. There's a fun element of it for the child, but it also helps the teacher monitor the activities that have been done either at home with a parent or with yourselves as tutors and classroom assistants and community workers. It helps to record where you are in the term's program of work. And it also helps to give feedback to yourself. You know, if you've sent material home and the child has colored in 2 or 3 stars, then you know what they've done at home with their parents and where you can pick up and carry on. So it measures the engagement with the materials. And that is where I leave you for the moment and hand back to Pauline. Thank you, Pauline.
Thanks, Katie. Earlier on, we said we're very excited about this latest feature on the time materials, which Katie's referred to already. So that's great, and you've seen it. And it's this notion of using a QR code, which needs to be scanned with your phone. And that, once it's scanned, it takes you directly to a message about that kind of activity, and it gives you support, additional support, about how to conduct that activity or how to engage the children more in that activity. And we thought, because we don't have big training program offered on the time program, we thought that's one way we can help homes directly, because a parent can scan a code, and in your case, you could use it when you're preparing for the session with the children, and we'll share it with you in the tips later on how we think you should access it and when you should access it. So in a nutshell, it's to give the parent and you support how to get the maximum benefit from out of that activity that we've highlighted. For those of you who know, who were part of the program last year, we were getting these support messages into homes via the Moya app. We no longer use the Moya app. There were too many layers and it was just getting too complicated, and that's why we opted for a more direct approach. So on the parent poster that Katie showed you earlier on, we actually do tell the parent and you how to use the scanner. And unfortunately, we're not in a space where we can actually ask you to whip out your pack and to scan it. But just so that you know, it is quite simple, and this is how it works. Wherever you see the code, like in this case, Katie mentioned in this case, it's on this activity, you scan it either directly with your camera. Some phones have a built-in scanner. It might not work immediately. Then you can go to your settings and you can enable the scanner on your camera. And if you're anything like me, for some reason, my phone doesn't allow me to do that. And so I have to use the third option, which is to actually download a scanner. Took me all of 2 minutes from Google Play Store. And now I have a scanner on my phone. So it sounds maybe complicated when I talk, but those 3 steps will help you scan it. And if you're you would be using your phone. So takes you to our website, which is data free, which means it's not eating your data when you're listening to the message or reading the message. Okay, so we hope you get lots of benefit out of using this new function. Okay. Did I say what I wanted to say there about? Yes, we've just identified one activity a week, you know, so there'll be one activity in this whole week that's got a support message. So if there's 6 weeks of material, you got 6 messages and so forth. All right. Now, we are very proud of our data-free website, which really means if you're using your phone to get to our website, it's not costing you any data. You've got to keep your data on, but it won't eat your data at all. The Time website provides you with all the support you need to use the Time materials the most effectively. We've given you, you can write this down if you can catch it, but I will give it to you later afterwards. This is the link to the website. I'm actually going to just take you there very briefly. Yeah. And so I've clicked on the link to the website, and it'll take you to this page, which has, at the moment, you can see 6 containers. Each container gives you support for a certain aspect of the program. So, for example, in this one, if you click on here, you'll see all the electronic copies of the hard copy that you actually have if you've ordered and you have it already. So sometimes people want to just download an extra few because a page broke or it got lost or so forth, so you can use that. The second container has the parent poster in it and some just again some tips on guiding you how to use the materials. The Time support messages container is, remember I told you you got a QR code and you scan it and it gives you a message. But there are also people, and maybe there are people in the room who don't actually have the hard copies yet, but they are interested in hearing on how to support children. I'm going to open it for you in a little bit, but maybe I should just open it now quickly. So just wanted to show you one because we can't show you all. So in this container, you can choose, I want to get some support on grade R or grade 1, and you see which one you want. In my case, I want to look for grade R. I also want to hear how I can support my child's drawing and writing, which is all those wonderful things Kerry said when she explained the activity. So I click on it, and I have to share this tab, right? And it takes me directly to our website where I get to choose. Obviously I've chosen grade R. It's very tiny. Sorry, you can't see. And I click on the message that is in here for supporting my grade R child. And there I come to an option that lets me listen. You can see that it'll add to a message in either English, in Afrikaans or isiXhosa, the same message. And I'm not going to play it now, but I'm just going to give you a hint. I don't even know if you can hear it.
Children sometimes find it difficult to
very
draw
soft.
what they see around them.
So you get a lovely, in this case, an audio message to help you understand how to help your child when they're drawing and writing. Sometimes it's a video, and it's got text. You know, if sometimes some people like to listen and read. Okay, so I've just realized I've taken myself out of the presentation. Sorry, let me just open it up. Okay, so that's our data-free website that I was just busy showing you. I got down a rabbit hole there again. So that's the one container, and then the other 3 at the moment. Here, if you have any questions about the program. Oh, you're not seeing it. There you go. If you have any questions about the program, you can find there's some frequently asked questions that we answer. Here, if you're in the room and you haven't yet joined Time and you're keen to join it, you click on here and it takes you to a form that you can fill in and you can join our print run. If you're a teacher and you want some support on how to use, not to use it in your classroom, but how to help your parents use it at home, there's some support in here. Now, one thing that hasn't we haven't included yet, but we're going to, is a container for people in your in your context. We're not sure what it's going to be called yet, but it basically be support for early learning for tutors or community volunteers or community facilitators. So for example, today's recording of this session will go in there, and the PowerPoint we're using for today will go in there. You know, so that you've got, and if we have any additional tips, we'll add it. Our website is growing, so we as soon as we see the need for new things, we'll add it. And then the last one is just an acknowledgement of all the organizations and our partners who help design these materials and who are sponsoring it and supporting communities and schools. So I'm sorry, Rudy, that we couldn't have a chance to have a look at the website, but it is, you just type in www home literacy, and we'll take you to an option, and you'll be able to get
Pauline, excuse me. Perhaps is it possible for you to maybe go back to this, you know, on the slide where the actual, you know, where the website address is at the top, and then you press, you know, before you actually come into the into the actual
I'm
website.
there now. All right. Okay. It should be coming up. All right, so there's the website. If you can just capture that. I'm very much aware of our time, and we promise we will be done at 4 as we had committed to. So you can just write down that website. Okay, so we're now going to just talk you through. We've got 2 slides because we thought you may benefit from ideas of how you can use time if you are a classroom assistant, or you're a tutor, or you're in the afternoon and you want you're working with children in their homework time, or you are employed by an organization to work in an after-school program. And so while Katie was talking about the activity, she already plumped some lovely ideas, and so you'll see them being repeated here. I'm just going to talk you through them. So if you're working with time in tutoring sessions, we suggest that, as Katie did earlier, that you combine some of the activities, and she gave you some tips on how to combine them. But one of the things that we want you not to forget is to also send activities home. Remember, this is a home learning program. You are the I almost said barrier, I didn't mean that, the bridge between the materials and supporting home. So you do some activities with the children, and we encourage you to send again in that week some activities home. We also know that you may not, since you're not working at home, you may have bigger groups of children. This tutor's got a group of 3 children with her. We don't suggest that you go any larger than 6. It's just difficult to interact with anybody meaningfully, you know. So a small group, and 4 to 6 is a good size. We also know that the reality is, in those kind of programs that we've just mentioned, while these materials are designed for grade R and grade 1, we know that you may maybe be supporting children in grade 2 and 3. And so you may want to use the materials for them, but we want to want to remind you that you can use it maybe as an additional language. So maybe the child is learning Afrikaans as an additional language, and then you can use the Afrikaans grade 1 materials. But please know, it's not designed for skills that go beyond, you know, grade 1 in the home language. We also mentioned earlier that while you might be working directly with children, if your organization, I'm speaking to organizations, if your organization does have parent-focused workshop, okay, Danae, we're taking note of your question, so we'll come back to it. Thank you. That you find time to orientate the parents to the activity, so that when it is being sent home, you know, they're aware of what's coming. And then we've given you some ideas just to get prepared. So obviously, if you're going to work in a session, whether it's during school hours, in a class, or afterwards, there is some preparation you'll have to do. And here we've given you some tips. we'd suggest that you actually check that week's planner. When you get the packs like this, it's not overwhelming, but once you start taking it apart, the pieces get missing. So we will suggest that you separate the weeks, maybe just secure them with a paper clip or in a plastic sleeve so it's separated. Then you take that week that you are busy with, and you, with your team, decide which of those activities are you going to do and which ones are you going to send home. If in that week there are little books to be folded, now's the time to get them all folded and ready so that when the children come, they can be handed over. And that might be also the activity you send home if you decide. If in that week that you're looking at, there's a read aloud story, we suggest that you practice that, as Katie said, practice it so that it's an exciting and gets children involved. And we give you the story, but you've got to practice reading it so that they will enjoy it when it's time for them to hear it from you. Also mentioned about pasting games on board. Now, these materials are very affordable. So if the things don't come back, I'm not saying we want to encourage children to lose things, but it is paper, but the games, it is nice to have the games a little bit more secure so that you can use them over and over again. As part of your preparation, you may want to prepare the Play-Doh, so that's all in their containers, and it's ready for them when you are doing your letter formation. The stories might need some props together, or some of the games need, like some pretend play games, you need some simple props that you have to gather beforehand. And then another way to prepare for the session with the children, we would suggest that in that week, you listen to that QR code message so that it informs you, and listen to it and talk about it in your team if you have some time to practice together, so that you've got a little bit more information on how that activity can be extended and used effectively with children. And then also that's preparing your materials. And then we would suggest a couple of other things, which is, if you're a tutor, that a lot of time can be spent with children looking for pencils and sharpening pencils. So we would suggest you have a tub, an ice cream container is perfect, one for every tutor, and in there you've got enough pencils for your group and 1 or 2 boxes of wax crayons, so that when the children come, you open the box and they can use it, and you can sharpen it and make sure the things are replenished instead of because that can take a whole lot of time to do. Also, as we said, we would encourage that you work with them, some activities with you and some gone home. The best way to do it is probably to have a kind of file where you keep just that week. We really don't encourage you to send this whole pack home or to have it. I'm repeating myself. So that week's materials, it's in a file and it moves between you and the home with the activity record in it, right? So that you can color in what you've done, it goes home, and the parents can color in what's done at home. And it creates a nice barrier between the home and what's happening with you and the teacher in the class. And then, of course, we also don't want to be spending a lot of time with children looking for books to write in. So have unlined paper. It can be loose unlined paper that you can slip in the file, or if you're able to actually have a book for each child. But please, the emphasis is no lines. When children are learning to read and write, they mustn't be confined to that. It allows them, it's more freeing. And you're not doing formal handwriting lessons with them. So. And I mentioned about helping them color in the activity and then sending it home. And when it comes back, you can check and you can see what's been done at home. Shoo! Remember, this is going to be on the website, so you don't have to be making a lot of notes. You'll have access to it. So we hope that those tips are helpful for you when you are thinking about how to structure your session. As I said, during the school day or after the school day. We hope those tips have been helpful. And we hope that if you are part of our network and you're trying something else, share it with us so that we can pass it on to other people who are using it in a similar fashion. I'm aware that there was a question in the box. I'm just
sorry, Pauline. I know about the question. Would you like me to put this form? Do you want to talk to the form?
So I put it here so I can open it up. So it'll allow me
Okay.
to open it up. Yeah. So
Okay.
I'll just, thank you, Katie.
I don't know if it should go into the chat because I
Yeah.
can do
Oh,
that.
that's what you mean. Please put it in the chat.
Okay.
Thanks. So while Katie's I'll tell you what Katie's putting in the chat box. So somehow I can't see the messages.
Okay, well, the message that has come through was from Dineo, Pauline.
Yes.
And it reads, we've received our materials, but we notice that some of the papers are missing. So we assume that they're written on a parent's guide because we only received learner's material, yet we ordered for parent's guide. So perhaps we need to clear up
So
that.
maybe just to thank you for that, Daneo. So I think we can take a conversation out of the meeting, but that pack that you got, the weekly planner is the parent guide. Does that help? So there's no extra, there's nothing missing. So all of these that you see is actually the guide for parents. It looks like it's making sense to you. And then in addition to that, there's this big parent poster that Katie took, which is also support. All right. But of course, we can chat if you want some more tips after that. But I'm glad we cleared that up. Was there more questions, Katie?
No, that's it. I think just to say to the people, oh, I see you, Dineo.
Oh, that's perfect. Perfect. Right.
Just to also let people know that the form that is in the chat box now is actually an attendance register for those of you who please, yeah. So
I'm going to first open it to show you what it looks like. So if you see here, when you get into that, you have to open up that little chat, that little what do you call that thing? Speech bubble. If you haven't opened it, and you'll see Katie would have posted the link. You click on the link. When you click on the link, this is what will come up on your phone, and it's really just asking you some really basic information, which is your name, the name of the school, that if your school sent you, or the organization that you represent. And then we'd really love to know, like, what's your role there? We've given you a whole long list. Please just choose one of what best describes your role. And if none of that suits you, you can type in where we've put other. Okay? And then we just want to know which session you came to, which is Thursday the 24th. So you find that one and you tick that one. And your feedback is so valuable to us. We want to know what you found helpful, what wasn't helpful, what do you still need help with. So we ask you, what did you find helpful? And any other further questions that you still may have, so that we can actually, it will inform us when we support other people in future sessions. Okay, and then please don't forget to click this red button that says submit. And that means it will come straight to us. So if you can just click on that form right now and fill it in, it'll come to us straight away. And while you're doing that, yeah, sorry, I just lost my. Yeah, and while we're doing that, we just want to give you a huge thank you for staying and for, I know we never heard a lot of voices or lots of questions, but we hope that as you listened, you found the orientation helpful. Okay, and I think I'm out, but please don't go until you have completed that very short register. So thanks everybody, and
a thank you and goodbye from me as well. So good to see everybody. We'll be wishing you the very best with the materials and with your children, and lots of success.
Okay, so Rudy, I'm so glad you put it in there, but please put it in on the in the register, because that's the place we can keep it. Daneo, we are recording this session, and it will be on the website for you to access, so you don't have to.
Thank you. All right, thank you very much. Thanks.
Oh, perfect. Oh, and Ruby, I saw that you sent the that you filled it in. Okay.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody. So fill it in and then submit, and then we'll see you. Bye. Thank you. there is a hand, I see, Kerry.
Bye.
Shahida,
Yes.
do you have a question,
Shahida.
comment?
Shahida, we see your hand. Did you have a
Maybe
question?
she did it by accident.
Might have been a mistake, yeah.
I'm going to stop recording.